here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Glebe's known for lots of things. Trotting, lots of other stuff I can't mention on the Skeptic Zone, or Richard's who'll cut it out, but it's known for a lot of things, let me tell you. And it's known for arches. Hear this arch. In fact, not many people know that all the work of 2 Unlimited was done underneath this arch. There's no limit. Oh, and by the way, I'm standing next to someone who claims that this is perhaps one of the spookiest areas in Sydney. It's Dr. Siobhan O'Sullivan. And look, she's you might know her from Knowing Animals, you might know her from her work about privatising the unemployment system, but tonight you're going to show us Glebe's spookiest place.
Well, thank you. It's so wonderful to be here sharing. This is my local area and it's wonderful to be sharing the spookiness with you.
I mean, what drew you to this spooky area? We're just next to the famous tram sheds, which were abandoned for many years when they were even spookier and used for sort of all sorts of things as when they were abandoned. Man, that was a time to be in those tram sheds when there was nothing in there.
Well, I am an Annandale resident, so I'm a local and I'm always keeping an eye out for local Annandale news. And when I discovered that there's a street with no name very close to me, and apparently it's also haunted, I had to look into it further. And of course I needed the skeptics with me.
Look, I was just reading in the Annandale Bugle the other day that street we're about to look at was where most of the abandoned bicycles, you know, those hire bicycles that used to be around, most of them were chucked in there by school kids. So we might find some ghosts of some bicycles.
Indeed, I think we're going to find we're not going to be hard up for rubbish. We might struggle a little bit with the ghosts, but we're not going to be hard up for rubbish, I fear.
And how do you feel about the ghost? Will it be images? Will there be ghostly shadows? Will there be occasional ooh-woo?
Well, I came here actually in the day just to help begin to acclimatise myself, but as we're here this evening, it's almost dark, so I'm expecting to hear a lot of very strange noises, distant bangs, creaking noises. Apparently you can often hear the ghost running away. I didn't know too much about ghost running earlier, but apparently this is something that can be heard.
Cool. Well, let's go have a look, because I've been reading up on my woo before this, so I know what to talk about everything. Richard, how are you feeling about this? Because I know, Richard, ghosts don't exist. You're just having an existential crisis. I know you.
I think I must be here as the token skeptic. No, it's great to see you, Dr. Siobhan.
Yes.
Haven't seen you for a little while. And actually, Maynard, Dr. Siobhan wrote to the Skeptic Zone and said you should check out Sydney's most haunted street.
She took the time to do that, but she did not mention your haircut in her email. Do something about your hair. Anyway. Yeah.
You're both looking very dapper. You've both emerged out of lockdown looking very groomed and fresh-faced, ready to go.
Well, I've just been doing sit-ups, just the one, but it was great.
Well, then that's singular. Sit-up.
But I am keen to explore Sydney's most haunted street. Now...
Oh, and for the viewer, the fans of the X-Files would know that they carried very heavy torches that both of them had trouble during the production handling. Of course, that was in the 90s. Now we have LED torches that have a gun grip on them, and I've got that, and it's got a great range and everything.
I've got a black light.
You've got a black. Oh, you've got a black light. Yeah. Don't you bring that anywhere near my place. See, she's a doctor. She knows this stuff.
I see. So, Dr. Siobhan, we are at the first spooky-looking gate. What's beyond the gate? I can't tell. It's overgrown. We're by this tram line. Is this above us here or something like that? It looks scary.
That used to be the goods railway, and now you'll find that that's the light rail that goes over there, Richard. Yeah.
Yeah, and also there is an aqueduct that runs through here as well, which was
so there's Roman ghosts.
It's a sewerage aqueduct. The ghosts of
poopy
poo's
Roman
long
ghosts.
past, I'm afraid.
The ghosts of poo long past. Well, I think we've all been there.
Shall we go in? Let's go in.
Get this noise, people.
The gate opens. And Siobhan's braver than us, Maynard. She's going in.
Well, you'll be glad to know that I'm playing the part of Scooby in tonight, and I've prepared a coding. Now, you say that this is this a laneway, or what is this exactly?
This is called the street with no name. My sincere suspicion is that it's actually just a little bit of government land in a very inaccessible spot, and that's why it's not been given a name.
Right.
But also, on a more serious note, perhaps, I also do think that perhaps some people do use it to sleep rough. I don't think anyone's here at the moment.
Oh, okay. Well, it's getting on dark. There might be, in which case we should leave them alone if that's the case.
I suspect there's no one at the moment, but there's quite a few bits of clothing and things you could fashion makeshift accommodation out of.
I see. Right.
Oh, yes, okay. Well, Maynard's venturing on ahead.
I'm having a bit of a look. I don't want to disturb anybody.
I'll follow Maynard through this growth here.
Okay, yes,
It's a little bit scary. What was that? Oh, it was you. I'm getting the creeps already, folks.
Yeah, this
We're making our way along here.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think someone's there, but I don't think anyone's up there. So what is supposed to have happened here, Siobhan?
Siobhan's just following
This
us
looks
up
like
with the torch.
Santa's beard. Yeah.
Actually, when I came here in the day to have a look, in this very tree that we are standing under right now, we saw 3 kookaburras. And I thought, isn't it nice that there are some spots where humans don't dominate and wildlife can have a bit of peace and time to themselves?
Yes, I'm just wondering if you'd get possums here or anything, maybe perhaps a Tasmanian tiger.
Perhaps, although perhaps the ghosts scare them off, we don't know.
I must admit that, Maynard, it does. There is a bit of a spooky atmosphere here because we've got this wall right here. We've got the side of the hill coming down. And it does have an eerie quality.
I think it's mainly eerie because it's dark, there's no one around, and you don't know if there might be actually live humans here, which would probably be the big problem. I think my parents used to say, you don't have to worry about the cemeteries. The dead people can't do anything to you. It's the live ones you've got to worry about. And having worked for the ABC, I can certainly agree with
Maynard's
that.
just gone up ahead, Dr. Siobhan. It's very dark.
It is very dark. Now, you can also enter from the other side, and I think if we keep going a little bit, we might actually be able to exit as well. So I think we might have done the whole street with no name.
Well, of course, one of the big things about this, and the most spookiest thing, is that it's very close to a Catholic girls' school. So if you look closely, you'll see lots of cigarette butts on the ground. And there's a bottle of Monster there. There's an actual Monster. That's the Monster
We've
energy
discovered
drink.
a Monster. Look, it's a Monster drink,
energy
right?
energy drink. Someone started see? It is an interesting, and we've pretty much covered it.
I think we can keep going, Maynard.
Okay, right.
Yeah. We're pressing on, folks. We're getting deeper and deeper into this strange area. It's hard to describe because we've got all the trees and the hill right on our right side.
No.
Around to see the other side then.
We've come to a dead end, we might say.
It's a dead end.
It's a dead end.
But we did find 3 old tents.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A lot of Catholic cigarette butts.
And air conditioning panels on our right as we exit here with the...
And a whole lot of graffiti, which is a bit of a pity because some of it's actually good, but no one's ever going to see it in here.
Yeah.
Oh, and a pair of pants. That's
And
good.
a pair of haunted pants, probably.
Oh, and a whole bunch of huntsman spider in that.
Ugh.
Yeah, I don't like huntsman.
All right. We're ducking through this sort of growth here, so it's not too bad, but it's not a straight walk to get out.
It's sort of like Apocalypse Now without the drama and the budget.
That's right. It's on the cheap. We can't afford very good ghosts, I'm afraid. We've got to settle for what we get. But it's strange. I mean, I wouldn't classify where we are now as a street. It's just like a nondescript, weird area.
You're just walking along the side of a building, Richard, with overgrown foliage.
Yeah.
Now I'm sounding like the Skeptic.
But there are other haunted places around here, I'm sure. We just have to keep looking.
got to say, as far as non-local consciousness goes, I don't think this is a place that has any.
Non-local consciousness?
Yes. Obviously, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake is a guy who listens to the Skeptic Zone fairly often.
Often, all the time.
And of course, I've watched half his TED talk. Half his TED talk. Yeah, look, I saw where he was going. Didn't have to see the second half. And boy, did that stir people up. It was called The Science Delusion. Oh, boy.
Ooh.
Why are you giving that man a platform?
Now we've come back and we're under this arch again.
Well, that wasn't too bad. I imagine it was a bit scarier then than it was during the day for you.
Yes, and I didn't go as deep in, so I think we really, really penetrated the street with no name.
Because I thought that was going to go all the way up to the top, but that must be another street that goes down the side of the tram sheds.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're going to go to another location now that is also featured in a lot of the pictures and chat about the street with no name. And I did think they would meet up, but clearly they didn't.
Do you think part of this is the fact that I used to live in a street just behind there where we parked? Do you think that's part of the reason why they think there's ghosts in this street? Ghosts of Maynard's carry-on.
Quite possibly.
I thought, originally I thought where we are now was the street with no name. I don't even know this is a street or what.
These used to be band rehearsal spaces. Bands could rehearse in here, but of course all that got kicked out the way when they tried to gentrify the whole thing. And they tried to start a cafe here, which of course doesn't go well with COVID or anything like that. Yeah. Oh boy, isn't King Street, Newtown a great place now? I saw 4 shops open. Yeah. Oh, sorry, hang on. I'm just getting... There's 3. Sorry, 3 now.
So this is now what, artistic space or something?
Well, I think that this is a community garden, and this is where they're storing their gardening tools.
Oh, community garden. You mean there's 4 people who tell everyone else what to do and don't let them do anything? That sort of thing. That's the actual...
like you've been a member of a community garden.
That's the actual definition of a community. In fact, I'm one of the few people who stood up against the community garden going in at the Glebe Library, because I said, at the moment, it's a nice open space you can lie on. It'll become the property of 4 people who won't let you pick a tomato.
There's a kookaburra right in front of us.
We're looking at a kookaburra. For those people who aren't from Australia, you've heard one in every single film about South America where they don't live.
There it goes. There are 2. There's friend that's up there.
The ones we saw the other day. Lovely.
And they're not a nocturnal bird, but I imagine all the movement around here would really give them the pip. Hey, if you want to find a bird to really despise, go for the eastern cole. Now, you're thinking, what is the eastern cole? You know the eastern cole, because if you live in Australia and at 4 a.m, a bird goes, whoo, and then stops until you're just about to go back to sleep and then goes, whoo, again. That is the eastern cole, also known as the Indonesian chicken. They can actually migrate from as far away as the Philippines, and they're black and they've got a bright red eye. That's the male. The female, you don't see them because they're embarrassed to hang around with the male, so you rarely ever see the female. And frankly, I don't blame them with making a noise like that. Karoo!
Now, if you're listening to this, you're listening to the special content, the extra content. Now, I was seeing someone's put some documentaries together about this area, and apparently there was a guy in 1966, a worker on the railroad or something who died on these tracks, was hit by a train.
All right. It didn't mention anything about what I got up to in the train tunnel here before it was turned into the light rail in 1991. Oh, okay, right, good. That's a good thing.
Now, I must have taken us the wrong way because we've not popped up where I was expecting us to, but the other place I was going to show you is really rather very similar. It is an overgrown entrance to a tunnel. So apparently locals who believe that this spot is haunted, they cite various bodies, very unfortunate children's bodies in the 60s being found here. So to me it does look like the kind of place where, God forbid, someone might dump a body if they had, committed murder. It's not clear to me that necessarily immediately takes us to the next realm and the world of ghosts, but it certainly, and particularly pre-gentrification, would have been perhaps a good place to dump a body.
Well, that's great. You got through that whole spiel without using the term morphic resonance once.
Now, over there is the haunted bandstand, and there are people singing.
Yes, in fact, I can hear the voice of Brian Henderson now. That's bandstand.
I'll tell you what I know about
Yes,
the
let's walk.
band.
Let's walk towards the haunted bandstand.
Now, if we want to look for that other entrance, we can. It is very similar,
All
though, I
right.
have to say. It's kind of overgrown.
I think it would be up there on the
Yeah,
other
we can
side.
go to the other side of the.
but it's pretty much the same thing.
We're walking by the Sydney Light Rail stop here, which has been in existence now for, I don't know, 10, 12 years or something like that. Maybe a bit longer.
But before that, it was a railway tunnel, and let's say a disused railway tunnel.
Disused. Now we're heading towards this bandstand because it's a it's a grandstand.
Choir practice. Making use of the acoustics for band choir practice.
This is a cricket oval down here to our left.
And there's a cricket over,
And there's
an
a
actual
cricket
cricket
turret.
over there. That's why it's a cricket oval. That's the cricket.
A cricket and a cricket oval.
Is it rude for us to talk while they're practicing?
We can talk here.
I'll explain the significance.
Now, Siobhan's just been pointing to some wood on the grandstand that's slightly discoloured from the rest of the wood.
So we're around.
You wouldn't think twice about it normally.
So, eagle-eyed locals have noticed that the grandstand has about 4 steps, and one of them is slightly differently edged than the others. So 3 of them are rounded and one's more squared off. And this is said to be proof that there was a murder that occurred here that was so gruesome that the blood soaked through the wood and the wood had to be replaced. And whoever replaced it used a slightly different technique for rounding the edges.
There was a murder in Glebe Point Road above what used to be the hairdressers. And it was on the top floor, and the person wasn't found, and it was rumoured that a bit of the blood dripped into the ceiling of the flat underneath it. So there's a bit of Glebe. Whether that actually happened or not, I don't know, but that a grisly murder occurred above what used to be a hairdresser's. But then again, that happens a fair bit.
So let's take a look at this. Here we go. We're right. Oh yes, look at that. Yeah. We're looking at the steps now. Yeah.
It is or they could have just run out of the wood that wasn't square.
Termites is another explanation.
Oh, you skeptics.
Sometimes you were just so prosaic.
I'm thinking inside the box.
Well, I think if we walk up here now and cross the tram lines, we'll come to another haunted place.
So we're going to the other side of the tracks, basically. That's a place Richard never goes to.
Now,
And they probably know me my name.
Now, last time we did it via under, so we actually didn't come over, but let's just go and see what we can see.
Yes. Now, as we're strolling along, Siobhan, Skeptic Zone listeners will remember I interviewed you, was it April or something like that? May or something like that. Now, you have been undergoing quite the adventure. Quite the adventure. Just for the sake of our listeners who may not have heard that episode, you were a podcaster doing Knowing Animals, of course. Very good podcast about animal welfare, basically. And then you received the news that you were diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Yes, that's right. In start of August 2020, last year, I was feeling quite bloated and a bit unwell. I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. I ended up in the emergency room at RPA, which is one of the big public hospitals in Sydney, and I was told that I had ovarian cancer, stage 3. Since then, I have gone through the standard procedure, the standard treatment, which is 6 rounds of chemotherapy and surgery to remove the cancer. But I've been very unlucky. The cancer had already spread basically before they stopped the primary treatment, and then I was moved on to another chemo. But then after a couple of rounds, I was chemo resistant, meaning that chemotherapy couldn't work for me anymore. So this is what happens, unfortunately, with ovarian cancer. I was about 20 years younger than the average age of diagnosis, and within kind of 8 months, I was basically terminally ill. And so I was given a couple of options. One was to stop all treatment and I would die by Christmas this year, so in a month. Or I could go back to a really old chemotherapy drug and I would lose all my hair, I'd have to have it once a week, I'd be constantly sick and I'd live a year. Or I could look around for a drug trial. So with options like that, I decided to look around for a drug trial. So thankfully I am on that drug trial. I have had one round and so far it has shown that the tumours aren't growing. So I stay on it until the tumours start growing and then I'm out of treatment options. So I'm hoping to live another year and a half. That's what I would like at least. I've been told to look around for another drug trial, but finding another ovarian cancer drug trial is not as easy as it sounds. So that's my situation, and one of the things I want to do is raise awareness about ovarian cancer because it is this really anomalous cancer. It is not like so many other cancers where it can be quite effectively treated and a large majority of people would be expected to live for quite a while if not have remission. Ovarian cancer has something like a 25%, survival rate, and it's a real killer, and we need research.
Is that reason because it's usually discovered late because it isn't found early?
It is a real creeper. So you get almost no symptoms. You get this feeling that you're a little bit bloated, but quite frankly, during COVID, who doesn't feel quite a bit bloated? And of course, for many women, most women, they get it later in life, and so you'll have skipped periods and things like that, but that's also part of getting older. So a lot of people just think my body's changing with age, but in fact, it may well be ovarian cancer.
Even in the early stages, is there any biomarker in blood or anything like that that will tell it, like a prostate PSA test, that sort of thing?
Yes, there is. There is quite a reliable marker in the blood. When I went to my GP and said, I feel bloated, I don't feel well, the first GP said to me, go home and take laxatives. So I did that for about 3 days and I felt so terrible. Every day I felt worse and worse and worse. I went back to my practice, saw a different doctor, and he tested me for that marker, and it was very elevated. It's supposed to sit below 25. In my case, it was around 400. But the problem with that marker is that after a while your body works out how to keep it low even though the cancer's growing. So it's all the real way to find out if you have it is a CAT scan. But one of the reasons it's such a nasty disease and we're so desperate to get some research and some answers is that I was diagnosed at the start of August 2020, and it's very likely that on the 1st of January 2020 I did not have ovarian cancer. So it is a really fast-growing cancer. There is a version of it that isn't fast-growing, but the one I have, which is the more common one, is fast-growing.
So even if you had a yearly blood test looking for that marker, you could still miss it, and that 6 months would be enough to cause problems.
Absolutely. And another thing that is really tragic and makes me feel so sad and a little bit despairing about the research side of ovarian cancer is that a very, very large study was conducted actually by my Vice-Chancellor at my university, which is UNSW Sydney, and they had a look at a lot of data from the NHMR, from the UK that they'd collected in the UK, and what they found was that even early detection didn't mean that you could save people's lives. So even getting it early, you still have these terrible outcomes. So what we need to do is either find a way to get it really early, or we've got to find a way to effectively treat it. Or both.
Now, did you ever at any stage go to Dr. Google and be horrified?
Do you know, it's interesting. I didn't Google it up immediately. I was diagnosed through emergency at RPA. It was during COVID. It was a very traumatic and upsetting experience. And even my doctor at RPA emergency, the first thing he said was it's probably appendicitis and we'll just rule out the really nasty things, etc. And they put me in CT scan machine and then they saw the cancer. And I was in a real state. I ended up at Chris O'Brien Lifehouse, which is a really lovely cancer hospital, and it's the kind of place that I would encourage listeners to support if they're in a position to support a hospital that's really trying to do good work. But I was a mess. I was there for about 2.5 weeks, and I I can't tell you, I was not in a good position. A lot of friends have since said that they didn't think I was even going to get out of hospital that first time I was there. I was very, very sick. And so I didn't really Google it up. I was so nauseous. I couldn't really look at a screen. I was just trying to hang in the game.
And a lot of people use words in cancer like battling cancer. And I've spoken to Adrian Edmondson, whose wife, Jennifer Saunders, had breast cancer, and he said that that's not great. It's more like a roller coaster ride through shit. And I'm sure they don't like to use that kind of language on Channel 7 or Channel 9, but to someone who's had that sort of experience, is battle just a really bad word? Because it indicates you can actually change something where you can't always.
Exactly. I have asked my friends and family to really think about avoiding the vocabulary of battle, particularly when I die, which is what is going to happen to me fairly soon. And the reason why I don't appreciate that use of language is it suggests that I have agency, and if only I fought harder, did this, did that, then it would go away. And the extension of that is that I brought this on myself with the wrong type of thinking or whatever else. And not only do I think that is incorrect, but also it means that all the little children that get cancer, they also had the wrong type of thoughts. They didn't think in the right ways. And I think that is so nasty and so unhelpful. So I've asked my treating doctors numerous times over, what can I do to help myself? And they say the same thing over and over again. Stay away from sick people because I'm immunocompromised, and turn up for your appointments because the doctors are the ones that are going to keep me alive.
Well, you've had really bad advice from people too. Eat more asparagus, stuff like that. What's been the most ridiculous thing that they've gone? And of course, you just would have snapped and just told them. You would have told them where to go, and it wouldn't have been glebe.
I was very clear from the outset that I wanted to be guided by the medical advice because I am an academic, I am an associate professor. I know how hard you have to work to become an expert in a field, and the thought that you could be, actually, some other thing. Not that whatever it is you're doing isn't important. If you're a tax officer or a supply chain manager or whatever else, no doubt you're an expert in that field, but you're not simultaneously also a cancer expert without ever having done the research or quite frankly, got the grades and done all the work at school. So I think it's a real insult. My oncologist, she's wonderful. She calls me regularly late on a Friday night to give me results and things like that. She's not at the pub. She worked really hard and she knows her stuff. So I've put my faith in trained medical professionals. And I was very clear about that. But still a few tips have filtered through.
Okay.
So I think it's watermelon seeds. Because I'm not paying close enough attention, clearly I don't want to get rid of this cancer. But yeah, 6 apple seeds will do it.
Also, apple cider vinegar, that's one they often suggest as well.
Yes. And look, I have to say, people are so well-meaning. I have got this hypernausea condition. I'm always nauseous and I take a lot of very, very strong anti-nausea drugs. And people say to me things like, ginger helps with nausea. And I'm sure to some extent ginger, well, I'm not sure, but I think it's possible that ginger might help under some circumstances. But what I'm talking about is supersonic nausea where ginger, indeed the anti-nausea medication they give me is designed to dissolve under my tongue because you're often so nauseous you can't even swallow a tablet.
Now, I know if there's any non-skeptical people listening, they'll be listening to this story go, aha, the first doctor completely ignored you because you're a woman, he wasn't taking you seriously. Now, do you think that doctor made a mistake or just your age was what fooled him because your age is not normally symptomatic for this?
Do you know, I had such a wonderful experience. So I go to the one practice in Annandale. They all share their information, but you could see various doctors in this practice. The first doctor I saw was actually a woman. And she actually said to me, what do you think's wrong? And I was bloated and I was not feeling good. And I said, I don't know. And I said, could it be cancer? And she said, I think it's constipation. So she sent me home with laxatives. I returned 3 days later to the same practice, and this time I saw a gentleman, male doctor, and he had previously been a nurse, and he was outstanding. But by then I was in distress. I was in tears, and it is so deceptive because I wasn't in pain. It's not painful, just something is wrong and you don't know what it is. And so I was in tears and I said, you've got to help me. Oh, what's that?
So we're all distracted because a ghost.
No, there was just it was the ghost of a large rat. Very much alive.
On the fence.
On the fence.
Yes.
Oh, good. I think there might be more than one rat in this area.
Yes. So you're really not apportioning blame to that first doctor because...
Look, what happened? So I went back to the second doctor and he did what I think is the right thing. He said, we're going to start at the worst end and we're going to rule out the worst things, and then what we're probably going to end up with something like irritable bowel. So he's the one that sent me for the blood test, and he rang me about 3 or 4 hours later and he said, there is something seriously wrong with you. Go to emergency, pack a bag. I can't tell you what it is and I don't know what's going to happen, but it's so serious that they won't let you leave until you're diagnosed. So I raced around, packed a bag, took myself off to emergency, and he rang me about 3 days later on my mobile, and I said, oh, hello, did you hear what happened? He said, no, I've heard nothing. And I said it was ovarian cancer. And I saw him a couple of months later after I was out of hospital. You know, he became my GP ongoing. And he said to me, I've been doing a lot of reading since I saw you because I never thought that it could be ovarian cancer. I didn't equate the two. So now I'm hooked up with a group of people, primarily women, who go around, they actually give talks to doctors to help them understand ovarian cancer because they may not see it. It's a rare cancer. Right. They might know. It doesn't come to mind.
Is this what you've been posting on your Facebook, and forgive me, I just can't remember the details, but if you could tell our listeners.
Yeah, well, look, I have decided that one of the things I want to do before I die is raise awareness and funds for ovarian cancer treatment. So it really is one of the most deadly cancers you can get, definitely most deadly cancer for women, and that has to change. It's too late for me. I'm going to die of ovarian cancer. That's what's going to happen. But there are young women out there who do not have to suffer that same fate. We need research, and research requires funds. So I'm doing as much as I can whenever I'm getting an opportunity to do it. So it's various things. So that program I was talking about going and talking to doctors and helping educate them, I haven't given a talk to a doctor yet, but I have said I will go if they get invited. I have been working with George Jensen, who is a jewellery design company, the Australian wing, and they've put out these necklaces, the one I'm wearing, where a proportion of the money raised goes to ovarian cancer research. And I'm happy to do that because I do think talking about ovarian cancer is an important first step to getting awareness and funds and research. And so I think if people do wear the necklace, that can start a conversation. But I've also been asked to do other things, including talking to politicians and other media appearances. And as I say, this is what I want to do. I'm not depressed or down or anything like that, but it is a very strange psychological game. You know, I want to be alive, but I know I'm going to die and I know I'm going to get sick. So for me to give myself meaning in this last period of my life is to try and make the world a better place for women with ovarian cancer.
And what should they do, Siobhan? Where should they go? Where on the web?
Yeah. Well, there are lots of different places where you can make a donation that would be really meaningful. So the Ovarian Cancer Research Foundation is somewhere you could donate to. There's ovarian cancer support group. So, for example, I have a nurse who rings me up every 6 weeks to answer my questions, and that's all money that's raised through funds. Chris O'Brien Lifehouse is also a good place. They do all kinds of cancers, but they've supported me. So there's lots of different ways that you can support. Look
now, there's a cute cat walking. I think the cat's
after the rat, right?
The cat's going,
Look, the cat is going through the haunted gate here.
There's going to be some... I think that cat's a mouser or a ratter.
Well,
I was was talking gleefully and I didn't even realise it a haunted gate.
I think you've made a very important message to our listeners, Siobhan, and thank you for that. And folks, I must tell you that one of the reasons I'm here, because Siobhan wrote to me and told me about this place. She said, well, I'm looking for places to haunt after I die.
Well, this brings us to non-local consciousness. Now, you do live around here, don't you?
Yes.
Well, so with non-local consciousness, that does not mean you're limited physically to any area around you. In fact, I would probably say that Dr. Rupert Sheldrake and people other like that could say you're not even limited to this planet, I would say. I'm not quite sure. Non-local consciousness means that you can go into the consciousness.
Where's the cat?
The
cat.
Another.
It disappeared. It disappeared. We're at this other gate
no, being
here.
a cat, the cat's just going to hide somewhere and then just jump on the
We
mouse
can't
as
get
it goes
through
past.
this gate.
Yeah, so this is one of the images that you see a lot in the photos, and I mean it does indeed have more road-esque qualities
Yes,
here.
it does.
But that said, it to me looks very much like unuseful government land that occasionally is driven into for maintenance and gardening.
Oh, he's getting that black light out again. You'll probably see the body of a dead mouse later on, we feel.
You never know. Well, the cat disappeared. It was there one.
No, there's a cat.
See, there's
Where?
the cat. See,
If you look over
he's sitting.
Come over here.
See, he's sitting and looking there.
Oh, yes.
See, I'm probably helping the cat slightly. I don't know if I'm wiping out his night vision or not, but
Unsurprisingly, we saw a rat and then we saw a cat.
yes. So non-local consciousness. So I reckon, like, is there some place you haven't been that you might like? And there's no reason, considering the temporal factor, that you have to stay there for long at all. So you could visit all your favourite places around the world potentially, if there's anything to this non-local consciousness. That's all I'm suggesting. I don't know. Or you could do a Harry Houdini thing and give Richard a secret code that only he knows that you could leave someone.
Yes, wouldn't that be amazing?
I mean, I'm not trying to be morbid or anything, but it's just one thing that popped into my head that, and you could prove the skeptics wrong.
Yes. Gladly. That would be a nice touch.
But Siobhan, I thought you meant this place next to us here, which is the one I thought it was.
Well, this is the one that they put in the images.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Just to be, clear, I do think there is great scope for interpretation in this game.
This one
There's a
goes
mysterious,
down there.
Oh, the stairwell.
Look at the
to
stairwell to nowhere.
It is actually a gate, and you can see a lock on it. But I've been down there when they used to dump the bicycles down there. In fact, I think the lock is there so they didn't dump the higher bicycles down there.
Actually, I think if
And
we
they've
could
also
have...
put up cameras too, as you can see.
Yeah, if we could have made it through, I think perhaps this is where we would have come out.
We could have.
Possibly.
Well,
Yes.
now, when we began, it was still reasonably light out, but now it's very dark. If we were to go back to that original haunted street, it would be pitch black.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's spend our time down here in the
Let's
spooky part
wander
again.
back. I heard some spooky singing again from the other side of the tracks, and we'll take one more
The
look.
wrong side of the
The
track.
wrong side. Now it's got darker. We'll take one more look down this other
Sure,
bit of the
absolutely.
haunted street.
Just one of the other big questions, Siobhan, that I've spoken to a number of people in late stages of HIV, and they talk about the focus that they get because of all the things they could do, they know they've got limited time and they focus. You are doing it with the awareness of ovarian cancer. Is there anything else in your private life you're like, I must get that tidied up, or I must do that? Or have you thought it really doesn't matter, really?
Actually, Maynard, I have been really glad to have this time for another reason, and that is that I am trying to do things with my money that I think will be lasting and effective. So I've dedicated a lot of my life to animal studies research. So one of the things I'm doing is setting up prizes for animal studies scholars. We're running it for the first time this year. It's going through an organisation called ASA, which is the Australasian Animal Studies Association, and I'm bequesting them $50,000 to do ongoing prizes to reward animal studies scholars.
What would be an example of something they might be studying that they might get an award for? What would be an example?
They might be studying why some people have hostile attitudes towards cats, for example, or why it is that some people are easily persuaded to buy free-range eggs and other people can't be convinced. So anywhere where it's a kind of a human-animal interface with a kind of focus on making the world a better place for animals.
But not doing any work on, like, why birds have an uncanny way of being able to poop on you. You think you're nowhere near one, and then suddenly, boop, it lands on you. And even if this has happened to me a number of times during the epidemic, and I'm just wondering, is this just pure? Is this the law of large numbers, as they say, or is this just me?
Look, that hasn't been put forward as one of the great burning questions, but certainly if we can get to the bottom of it, I'll let you know.
Look, do you think, as far as animal rights go, things are moving forward, or we're stalled currently, or they're going backwards?
Do you know, that's one of the really big questions, and that's one of the things that I've been reflecting on a lot lately, because I really have tried to commit my life to education. And when I see people questioning vaccines and things like that, it does make me really worried that we haven't done a good job at bringing everyone along in terms of education.
It's because you can say, hey, I'm alive for longer because of science, and people go, I don't want to take the vaccine.
Absolutely. It's just, it's really quite sad for me to see this. We failed some people in this regard. So one of the things that for me that's also been hard about the pandemic is being separated from people. I want to see people. And, I can't claim to be a close friend of Peter Singer's by any stretch of the imagination, but I certainly know him, and he's always been very generous with his time with me. And he and I have been trying to meet up because I wanted to talk to him about what is a good life, and have I made good decisions in the way I've lived my life. And he's been trying to do a tour of Australia talking about all these issues, but it keeps getting postponed. So now it's postponed till I think April next year, and I really want to catch up and have a meal with him and get his reflections on, did I do enough in the right ways, and what's it all been about.
Wow. I would have thought that there's no right answer to that.
Yeah, look, I don't think there is a singular answer, but I think it's useful to kind of think about, so for instance, I've been vegan for about 20 plus years, but going back to your question, is the world a better place for animals? Well, we have these massive production units. The more the human population increases, the more meat's consumed. A lot of people who would previously have had more of a vegetarian diet because they lived in parts of the world where that's more culturally acceptable, or indeed because where they lived in poverty and they didn't have access to meat. That is changing, and so, for instance, China is going to have a big increase in its consumption of animal protein. And so what does it all mean for the animals? Are the animals better off now than they were? And I think perhaps the sad truth is, in terms of volume consumed and in terms of intensity of production, probably for the animals the world is still a bad place and hasn't improved a lot.
When we think of decades to come, there's going to be things that people are going to look back on as being a bit silly that we do, like boxing, like driving your own car, like drinking alcohol, but I'll debate any day of the week. And of course, one of the other ones might be owning pets. Having those animals as almost, they're pampered, but they're pampered slaves, and there's that psychology. I bet Pete Singer would perhaps have something to say about that. Is that one of the issues that concern you? I mean, everyone loves their pets, but it is a bit of you own a pet.
It is really interesting, and again it's so complicated. One of the things that I'm really worried about, and I think a good number of people in the animal protection movement are worried about, is what's going to happen post-COVID, because you could not get a puppy for love nor money in this city for a long time. Even kittens were hard to come by, and this is a long-term investment. I mean, this is a 15 to 20-year investment. And so are the pounds going to be full of unwanted animals in the future? So even for companion animals, things aren't great. That said, the ones who get lucky and get the privileged household and all the rest of it, they have a really fantastic life, indeed, to the point where probably a lot of companion animals are over-consuming resources, much like the humans are. As human population weight's increasing on average, so are the companion animals. The cats and dogs are getting fatter as well while we are.
Well, I hear people, and anecdotally, people who live near someone who's got a dog just during COVID, and now they're going to work all the time, and the dog just barks all day because it doesn't know what's going on. There's no one around suddenly, and it's upset. I mean, that's not a nice life.
No, it's not. It can be a very lonely life for a companion animal, particularly when you've got attachment issues. So it's really very, very tricky.
Look, I know people sometimes pet. Sorry, we're going on the pet tangent here, Richard. That there's doggy Valium to make the separation issue with the dogs, and to me there seems to be more dogs with separation issues, and I never used to hear that back as a kid. Like, also, you know, if your dog cost more than $100 to the vet, it was like, oh dear, the dog has to go away. And now people spend thousands. There's dialysis for cats, indeed, things like that. And yeah, I just think, you know, is it really fair to them to be doing all this to them?
Well, many years ago now, I wrote a paper with a colleague of mine called John Hadley, and we had a look at excessive expenditure on companion animals. Indeed, we were interpreting Peter Singer's later work on poverty alleviation through the lens of animal protection. And it's extraordinary what you can get for companion animals, but I think of the most expensive was the diamond tiara, but the strangest one I read of was, once you have your dog desexed, you can get silicone testicles inserted so he feels fully intact as he's parading around.
And is that a thing? Is the dog really going, look at my balls, look at my wonderful balls? Is it really doing that? Or is it just making you feel not as guilty as a pet owner for having him cut off?
I dare not speculate too much on that one.
I think it's projection. That's what I think.
So what we'll do now is we'll go back under this arch and we'll do the wrap-up.
Okay.
So,
Fox Mulder here, otherwise known as Maynard. Thank you for listening. I wouldn't say it's an X-file. It might be an X-file with an EX, maybe, that kind of file, but it hasn't been too spooky. I did get scared by a huntsman spider, but then again, that could happen anywhere, folks. Yeah, and there was a rat, and there was a cat.
And a cat.
And a small mouse, which I think is... And we're under a vat. Look, listen to that. Isn't that fantastic? Oh, you have to say...
Hello.
He said,
Hello.
Scully, I think it's a contagion. What? A contagion. There you go. That's just about in every third episode of the X-Files. The words contagion gets mentioned, and now it's just overused now. You don't use it anymore. And it's been wonderful having a walk and a chat and seeing the rat with you.
Oh, thank you. It's so fabulous to be back on the Skeptic Zone. Such a joy.
Yeah. And what is your prize going to be called that you were putting the money towards? Have you given a name for it?
Well, the information is through ASA, the Australasian Animal Studies Association. It's just got the boring title at the moment: Best Paper by an Early Career Academic focused on animals. We're not in the witty. We need to get you in, Maynard.
Be good to animals or we'll punch you. How's that? I guess that's a bit too activist, I guess, yeah. But it's been wonderful having a chat to you. Good to hear you laugh again too.
Oh, thank you.